Welcome. This is the Ag Engineering Podcast, where we talk tools, tips, and techniques to improve the sustainability of your farm. I am your host, Andy Chamberlain from the University of Vermont Extension, and this podcast is supported by Northeast SARE, providing grants and education to advance innovation in sustainable agriculture. We're trying to improve the industry by chatting with farmers and getting their input on tools, tips, or techniques that have changed the way they farm for good. Many of these practices affect multiple areas of the farm. Whether it be environmentally, emotionally, physically, or financially, we share the knowledge to promote sustainable agriculture, lifestyle, and business. Thanks for having a listen. Now, let's get started. Today's episode comes to you from Starksboro, Vermont, where we're visiting with Footprint Farm. They've got 9 years farming experience and 7 years growing on this land. They cultivate about 2.5 acres of production with an additional 1/4 acres in high tunnels. They sell to farmers markets, CSAs, restaurants, and caterers, and have about $150,000 to $170,000 in sales. Taylor and Jake Mendel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
So there's a little bit of backstory to set the stage about your farm. If you could describe what you do in one sentence, what would you say?
We grow about 1.5 acres of diversified vegetables plus 1 acre of cover crop in a very cold climate, and we do it year round.
Awesome. So today's podcast, we wanted to talk about how you manage all your different markets. You sell to farmers markets, CSAs, restaurants, and caterers. That seems like an awful lot to manage. Is it, or you got it under control?
Depends on what day you ask us.
That's such a good question. Well, I think we kind of started just by kind of throwing bleep at the wall and seeing what stuck.
Dipping our toes in all the water.
Yeah, and kind of settled on the sort of multi-pronged sales. Business approach. Nice, thank you
Sales
for
approach.
that. I needed help there.
We really liked the lean farming method of that pull attitude towards sales. So when we were starting with a bunch of different markets, we tried to really pay attention to what was working, what didn't work, what people liked, what we liked. And then we settled on really liking CSA to have A, the relationship with our community, but B, a cash flow that we could control a little bit better. Then we use that lean tiered production method to say, okay, if CSA is they're our main squeeze, they're going to get what's best in the field this week. But say we don't give eggplant to CSA this week, then what do we do with it? Okay, we'll go to a farmer's market and we'll really push eggplant at farmer's market that week. And then, oh shoot, what if it didn't sell there? Let's set up a route of restaurants on our way home from farmer's market that we can sell that eggplant to. And it's set up a really nice combination. It took a while to find those wholesale accounts that worked for our model, but it's great because we feel like we have very little waste in our system right now.
And I think as far as to go back to your question about managing all those different markets and accounts, I think one thing that we settled on that's really helped with that piece is we have different days dedicated to different markets. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are CSA days, so that's CSA harvest, wash, pack, distribution. Wednesday is a wholesale day. Friday is harvesting for farmers market on Saturday, and a little bit of wholesale on Saturday too. But we were able to hyper focus on one market in a given day, which I think really helps with that management piece. Like in the winter, we sometimes will do CSA and wholesale on the same day, and that can get pretty confusing. Made a couple of mistakes the last couple of weeks.
I don't think too bad. It sounds like a lot to manage, and I know it is, and we're going to get more into that. But I just wanted to highlight, I really like the holistic approach and reduction in waste. Like, not only is it reduction in food waste and all that, but it's more efficient. I mean, you're selling all your produce. You're not just throwing stuff out. The fact that you start with CSAs and then, you move it down the line, essentially sell the bulk that you've got more than enough for your CSA, so you take it to farmer's market. Great. You still got some left over, then you can call the restaurants or whatever and kind of really get rid of your bulk that way, which is like, I never really thought about it that way. And
it takes
I
a
really
lot
like
of
that.
It takes a lot of planning on in the winter too, for our crop plan, because we get to have conversations with our wholesale customers in the wintertime, and we try to plan our production to meet what they expect to be on their menus.
Right.
And
Which doesn't always go exactly to plan, but it's definitely a good starting point.
right. And then we try to guess what CSA is going to want, and it took a few years to get those mixes to be pretty close, but
I think that was a core principle in when we were starting our business and writing our first business plan, the minimizing waste aspect. I think it kind of started off as like a moral thing potentially, but it has since moved into also a financial thing, because everyone, I think, is aware that margins can be slim on a farm, and if we're going to put in all this time and effort into growing a quality product, we don't just want to throw it into a compost pile or feed it to our pigs. It feels right to try and have this sort of tiered system, so that way we can, if it's not going to one market, it can still go to the next market. And if it doesn't go to that market, it can still go to the next market. And so you're giving yourself sort of 3 chances to sell one product.
and it's a model that works for our scale too. We have to sell every scrap we can produce to be able to be profitable. I think on a bigger scale, your mindset has to shift a little bit. You are looking for markets in a different way. And so sometimes it makes sense to grow excess so that you're ready to fill a market need should it come up. It's just on our scale, it really makes sense to be really careful about how we're growing and who it's going to.
Certainly. What's the ratio between those markets? How much are you selling to CSA versus restaurant versus?
Typically, it's been about a third for each market, but this year it changed a little bit. We were closer to 40% in our wholesale numbers this year, mostly because we started doing a lot more with caterers, and then CSA and farmers market, I think, share the rest of the.
I think probably CSA is a little bit more than farmers market. We only do one farmers market on Saturdays.
And your wholesale is local bulk orders, like restaurants and caterers, not necessarily sending it to a distributor, right?
Right. I think I've heard it called retail wholesale. Yeah.
All within probably 20 miles of the farm, I would guess. I haven't actually mapped it out.
I mapped it out
You did?
recently.
Oh.
Yeah. I had to get our mileage reimbursements.
That's nice, and you are fairly close to the Burlington area, which is beneficial.
Oh yeah, but we don't quite go up there.
We have 2 restaurants that we work with in Burlington, but mostly because one of our employees lives in Burlington, so he will drop it off on his way home. I don't know if our delivery route would go all the way up there if and when he moves.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into the details a little bit about each one of those sales channels and just talk a little bit about how you manage it and how it fits into your system. I mean, so we'll start off with CSA. How does that work?
CSA we have about an 80-member CSA right now, and it fluctuates through the seasons, but we've set it up so that each of our CSA seasons matches the school year rather than the actual calendar season. And that's because we've seen membership or people's ability to make it to pick up on time really fluctuates as their kids are going back to soccer practice. Mostly soccer practice is the factor. So that's been a big piece, is trying to work with people's schedules as far as managing CSA dates and signups. We have a sign up on our website, and we do all of our signups that way. It comes in, it's just through we use Weebly, so it comes through our website, and I get an emailed little list of what people want. Oh no, I take that back. I did it. It's new now.
Airtable.
Ooh, watch out. Okay. So we use.
She's pretty fired up about
I'm really
Airtable.
fired up about Airtable. So I have been very frustrated about CSA management for a while because we have a lot of different options. People can sign up for one season or all seasons. They can get add-ons that come from different businesses. They can, some people get discounts because they go through our farm share program, or they're paying with EBT or credit card. It's all over the place. And we're not quite big enough. I've looked at the options for the online, like the Harvey CSA management software. I don't think, and this is partly because I love spreadsheets and databases, that it's not quite worth it for us to invest in something like that. Maybe if we had more like 150 members, it could make more sense, or we were doing truly customizable boxes. But at this point, it doesn't. So I was trying to find a database system rather than a spreadsheet that I could use, because I wanted to be able to pull up, okay, how many dozens of eggs are supposed to be going to X pickup? And it was really tricky to do that with pivot tables on Excel. I kept putting equations in incorrectly and then couldn't find it where I'd messed it up. But so instead, I tried a couple of different ones that were really expensive, and I needed to hire a developer to set it up the way I needed to. But then somebody told me about Airtable, which I love. So if you can use Excel, you can use Airtable. And it looks like Excel, but it's a little bit prettier. It's more clean.
More bubbly.
It's more bubbly. Yeah, it looks
square.
like more data entry boxes rather than a grid. Yeah. And it feels like using an app. And it goes on your phone. It looks like an app. You can organize it in all sorts of different ways. Again, it's color coded, which I really like.
It's free.
It's also free, but if you want the color coding, you do have to pay a little bit per month.
That's where they get you.
Well, I also, this is maybe not a great business practice, but I so appreciated that there was a free option that I signed up for their monthly fee, just because I felt like I wanted to support them. And maybe that's a strange thing to do.
What is that monthly fee to get your color-coded buttons?
It's $12. It's not that much, yeah. And the other one I was looking at is and I had used at another business, FileMaker is $900 a year, which is more expensive. I just did the math in my head. It's more expensive. Yeah. Okay. Like, oh gosh. So the way that it actually works in practice is somebody would go to our website and they would fill out the online sign-up form, and it pops right into Airtable as if you were using a Google form and going into Google Sheets. And then ours is totally customizable, so it goes in there, it tells me everything they've signed up for, and it also pops up into this section on Airtable that says I haven't invoiced them yet. I do have to go in and then take that information and put it into QuickBooks, which is how we bill them. And so I do an invoice that I send to them, and they usually pay through the QuickBooks invoice. And then whenever we get ready for a new season, I can just print out a list of names for each drop-off and what they signed up for, and it works pretty well.
So just to clarify, Airtable is an entry form where your customers enter in what they want or where they're picking it up, and then it summarizes it for you, or am I...
Imagine it, I think it's easier to equate to the Google situation. So Airtable is more like Google Sheets, but it has a function where you can create a form like Google Forms, which will pop the information into the sheet.
Got it.
Yeah. So
And
it's
is
not.
and you can, our website can host that.
So I embedded the form in our website. Right.
Saves a lot of time from receiving information and then having to manually input that info into Excel.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about that times 80.
Right.
It costs about $12 a month.
Yeah.
And so what are the categories that you're sorting by? What's the fields in that spreadsheet that you're looking for? Is it location?
Mm-hmm.
Is it eggs? Is it bread? Is it kale? Is it just?
I have it sorted by, there's a lot of different ways that it's sorted. Location, what season they signed up for, what add-ons they have. So we have eggs, full dozen, half dozen. We have bread, meat, fruit. And then it also sorts them, by day. So are they Tuesday or Thursday? And I have that sorted so that I can select all of their emails if I'm emailing everybody from Tuesday or Thursday. That's the trickiest thing, I think, in a more manual CSA format is contacting people. So if I'm sending our newsletter out, I still have to copy and paste all of the emails.
But at least it gives you a quick way to sort it.
Yeah.
So you can just pull in the people for this season or everybody when you're
Exactly.
kicking off a new sign-up
Exactly.
season. Do you have sign-ups all year round or just a short time frame?
We have people signing up mostly right before a new CSA season begins. We'll have a big flush of people whenever we open it up, January or February. And those are people mostly that are signing up for the entire year. And then that's about half. It's about half. And then the remainders sign up within a month or two before each season begins.
Are your customers automatically enrolled in the next season?
They are not automatically enrolled in the next season. We also do not do discounts. And we also increase our price every year by 25 cents per week in order to accommodate employee raises. And that's on our website and has customer buy-in. And it's great. We also have an option for sign-ups for people to donate to our farm share program, which allows us to do 50% off shares for some of our customers. We have very generous customers. Yeah.
That's great. I think having that transparency right there on your website probably helps. Like this is why we're increasing the price and not giving you a discount. It's so we can pay Noah and Steph or whoever.
Yeah, and we've also noticed that people get overwhelmed with having extra, and so if we're doing a $24-ish share, but we give them $34 worth of produce, they're actually overwhelmed by that excess.
Right.
And so we've learned that they don't want us to give them free food. They want us to succeed. They want us to not struggle
right.
and to not waste. Yeah. And so we've been grateful and successful in having our shares really just average $24. So it's a little bit less in the early spring. It's a little bit more in the main season. This year we had a great year, and so we did give them a little bit more value, but the value is not, we're still giving them the same number of items, but we're giving them maybe a little bit more Brussels sprouts, which is a high value item, or we're giving them more bagged greens, which is a higher value item.
More tomatoes in the summer.
Right.
Yeah, I think we usually try and get like average a tiny bump over I think what the share value is, just almost as like a return on investment sort of idea, maybe 5 to 10%, but
we try to
they still get
not
one bundle
them.
of kale every year, but your bundles of kale keep getting a little bit bigger.
one more leaf.
Exactly.
One leaf return.
A little more fertility this year. They're big leaves.
Actually, though.
Yeah. That's some really that's an interesting conversation. That's great. So What are your pickups like for CSA?
We do a market style pickup. So if I were a CSA member and I was arriving at my location, I'd walk in and either Jake or I are always at the pickup, and there's a chalkboard that says, it lists out all the items that they get, and it usually is 6 to 8 items, and it'll say, take 1.5 pounds of roots, and then they would go and then they'd turn and they'd see this long table full of vegetables that are arranged by the list on the chalkboard, and that way they can choose which bunch of kale they want. It's not free choice, but they do get some choice within that.
Kale
and then,
or chard this week.
Right. We've identified the items that are kind of polarizing. So radishes and turnips tend to be polarizing. Kale and chard tends to be polarizing. People either love it or hate it. So we try to have a choice on those items most weeks. So that beets and carrots is another one. So on the board it would say choose beets or carrots. And we give everybody a tote bag at the beginning of the season. And so they bring their tote bag, they fill it up, check their name off, chat about what recipe they're going to make.
We've I guess, talked a lot about choice and how much choice to give people, because we've noticed that sometimes when we have, for example, this week's CSA, it was choose your squash that you want and choose your roots that you want and choose
Kale or chard.
Kale or chard, and choose onions, shallots, or garlic. And when you get too many choices, it can overwhelm people a little bit.
Especially during the school year. They're trying to get in, get out.
Right.
They've got kids hanging off of them. A lot of our CSA members have young kids.
Yeah.
And
and
so
I
we
don't
try
want
to
to
make
stereotype, but the husbands are often overwhelmed by the choices. I hope I get the right things.
The non-normal picker-upper.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's
It's
less of a
just give me my
stereotype.
bag. Just give me the bag. Yeah.
But yeah, some choice I think is also important.
Some choice, but
Yeah.
not too much.
But not too much.
Yeah. Well, I can second that.
Yeah.
Let's just chat a bit about how do you deal with chefs, restaurants, and caterers? That seems daunting. I mean, do you cold call them? Do they reach out to you?
Well, one of the things we did is we divided and conquered. So this is all Jake.
Yeah, Taylor deals basically exclusively with the CSA management, which I feel like is a lot more complicated than the wholesale retail management side. It started off, I think we started getting into restaurant sales maybe our second year. There's a summer camp right down the road from us. So our first year we sold a lot to them, and that kind of like wet our whistle, so to speak, for that type of sale. And I think in year 2, I made a point after farmers markets of going around to restaurants on the way home and just like stopping in, showing them what we have, trying to meet face to face, maybe pestering a little bit.
I have to put in a plug here. I think when we say that to people, sometimes they're like, "Oh, well, you like people more than I do.
Yeah.
That's really intimidating," and that's not true at all. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Jake hated it.
I did not like it.
No,
it's
no.
stressful.
It's
Like
really
I don't
stressful.
like putting people out or putting them in an uncomfortable situation or feeling like a burden. And so like walking in somewhere and being like, "Hey, do you want to buy my product?" It felt like I was peddling knives door to door.
Yeah, I mean, like, is that how it went? You were coming back from farmer's market, so you're like, I'm just gonna swing into the pizza shop and see if they want to buy this basil.
We made like a little wholesale kit. Like, here's
Yeah.
our salad mix. Here's our
Yeah.
things that we wanted to sell.
Right. And also price lists are helpful. And I think we tend to be sort of on the upper end of prices when compared with, some like a distributor. We often will come in a little bit more expensive. But I think our main sales pitch is that this was harvested within the last 24 hours. You're going to get at least a week out of the salad mix rather than potentially 3 days or unclear.
Yeah.
That was some feedback that I heard off the bat when we started selling to restaurants is your stuff lasts a long time. And so I I realized that seemed to be something important.
A regular advantage.
Yeah. So
well, they don't have to pay somebody to pick through the
right.
slimy greens.
Right. And so eventually, you build a bit of a relationship with certain chefs. I think our favorite chefs to work with are the chef owners, because they're not going anywhere unless the restaurant goes somewhere, basically. So, we've worked with a couple of restaurants that have had 4 or 5 different chefs in 3 years. And that can be because you build a rapport really with the chef or the produce buyer. And when that switches, you kind of have to start all over again. Whereas the owner of the restaurant, well, that, you build a rapport. And so that's been really nice. And then I think like 2 years ago, we turned, I think, an important corner where chefs started to contact us, which I think was a really big, I don't know, maybe pumping our tires, right? It felt like, whoa, we finally made it in some way, shape, or form.
The word of mouth is spreading.
Yeah, I guess, or I don't know, maybe the Instagram presence is helpful there. But that was really cool. Like, one of our best customers is, he contacted us in the beginning of the season 2 years ago. And so now I think we have like a good core that we work with, and are adding a little bit here or a little bit there, and maybe subtracting a restaurant here or there, but it's kind of stabilized a little bit. And I can also talk about like the management of all of those different accounts. 'Cause I think, what do we sell to? Like maybe 8 to 10 restaurants and caterers weekly, depending on the week. If the summer camp's in session, or maybe they're hosting another group where there's a caterer coming in to cook for them. Every once in a while, there's a wedding, friend getting married that we'll do some stuff for. But ultimately, I'll send out what we call a fresh sheet each week, which has a list. It's basically a produce and price list for the week, and I'll write if there's anything new that week. I'll give them sort of a 2 or 3 week, like in the future, glance into the future, what's coming. I'm very transparent about the fact that I don't actually know that's coming, but try and give them a little bit of heads up, because a lot of our restaurants are seasonal people who like, too much to their credit, are really trying to cook with the seasons and what's available locally. And so to give them a heads up so they can kind of plan their menus out a week or 2 in advance, they seem to appreciate it. And when they appreciate it, it's good for us. So,
are all your restaurants farm to table focused, or not necessarily? And you'll kind of reach out to anybody?
Not necessarily. No, I would say mostly. Yeah. Most of them are farm to table focused, but there's a couple that are like,
they're more local.
Sure.
Well, there's one that's not really either, but there's a couple that they do more. They feel very Vermonty. I don't think that they would call themselves farm to table.
Sure.
They don't really tout the farms that they work with, but it is very seasonal. It's very local. A lot of kimchi, that kind of thing. Kimchi on hamburgers.
Yeah. Yeah. The gastropub is, I think, a big, that's a big one.
So they're focused on quality. They're focused on having fresh, flavorful ingredients more so than the specific farm, right. I think.
Yeah, but you aren't only going to the farm to table super high end stuff, which is good. You're encouraging other local businesses to.
Yeah. I mean, one of our best customers, most consistent, I don't even know if they write on their menu where anything is coming from, but they'll often say like, oh, the people, like our customers are now like, oh, the salad mix must be coming from your farm now. Or, I think they just kind of like talk about it with people as opposed to shouting it from the rooftop. It's more like it's a very like, they have their local customers that come back almost weekly, it seems. And so they kind of, the customers are now noticing a difference. And when it starts, then it's fun to, I don't know. I really do enjoy talking with the chefs on deliveries and just figuring out what
just said you really enjoyed it, and earlier you said that was like one of the worst things
once we
ever.
have
You
the
coming around?
I enjoy relationships. I don't necessarily enjoy cold calling or
breaking the ice.
Breaking the ice, yeah. Once the relationship is formed, it's fun.
Sure.
Because I mean that's part of the reason that we're in agriculture and farming, and why we've decided to do such a retail based market, is that I think we get a lot out of seeing people enjoying the product and talking to the people that are using it. And, it's not always like a pleasant conversation. Sometimes it's like, oh, you could do this better or that better. But that kind of feedback is also really important.
Working with caterers, when you get some random person calling you in August saying they have a wedding coming up, does that like totally mess up your production, or do you just account an enough buffer in overproduction that you can kind of absorb an additional order for an event like that?
It depends. We have one caterer who orders a lot, and his business format works really, really well with us because he is farm to table, and that is his whole shtick. And the customer doesn't order specific dishes. They order him, and he creates the menu for the event, which is fabulous because he calls us and says, hey, I want to do salad. I want to do a grilled vegetable. I want exactly. And just, what do you have extra of this week? Which, I mean, if I could invent a wholesale customer, it would be him.
Right.
So that works really well.
I think for the most part, our caterers are fairly consistent. They maybe the number of people they're serving in a given week changes a little bit, but they often will have, say
they're trying to book pretty regularly throughout the season.
June through October, they're going to have 3 or 4 events a week, and
they're usually doing similar things, a tomato platter and a salad thing.
Right. And then there's a couple caterers that already know their schedule and are like, oh, we're going to be down the road from you these dates. So keep those in mind. And then we can actually plant a little bit of overproduction, plant, I guess, both means the same thing. A little bit of overproduction for that specific timer. We know when camp's going to be in session down the road, so we plant, 50 more feet of cucumbers to serve their clientele. Or we do a lot of we try and talk with the chefs beforehand this time of year, so that way we can plan best we can to not run out of things that they are going to want. And say someone calls about a wedding in August, I think we've gotten better at, if we don't have it, just saying, sorry, we don't have it. And I'd rather do that than overproduce all year to potentially be able to serve that. And that's just how we've decided to run ours. And like Taylor was saying, it's not necessarily feasible on all scales, but seems to work with our scale.
Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or wanted to say that I haven't asked about managing these multiple different sales channels?
I think an important part of wholesale management, especially when working with restaurants, is that of all industries, I feel like restaurants are most similar to farms in that they're so busy. And you really have to work with the chef on how they like to communicate, but also be firm about how we need to communicate. So we need to send out one fresh sheet. We're not going to email somebody one format and then text somebody else the same thing and coordinate all these different communication options unless it's really worth it.
I was going to say, with
that said, we have a couple of people who are big enough accounts that they only text. Okay, we'll text you, but we still send out that we still need an email address from you. We still are going to send out this fresh sheet, and we try to. There's also a lot of difference between products. So if somebody's getting something from another farm, they're getting bok choy, and it's a different size than our bok choy. We've also had to learn to be really clear about what baby bok choy means. So we've started on that fresh sheet. We've started using, it's a Google form, or not a Google form, sorry, it's a Google Doc. And so on that we can put a link to a photo of what we mean by baby bok choy, or how big the carrots are right now, or whatever, so that we really, since the chefs are so busy, I feel like, and I'm not really sure if this is true, but it feels like maybe there are a few times where we sold something to somebody, but it wasn't quite what they were expecting, and then we just don't hear from them again. And we're trying to eliminate those situations. So if they really know what they're ordering, and we gave them every opportunity to know what they were ordering, there's more of a chance that we're going to create this trusting relationship. And it's really about that relationship. So if we need to text them, we'll text them.
As long as they make it worth your time.
Yeah.
Chefs are busy, and I think we try and meet somewhere in the middle because we're also busy, and we don't want to do, so I won't like resend out. We used to text each chef individually the availability. And when it was, 3 or 4 people, that worked out okay. Once we moved up to, 10 people, that was no longer feasible. And so I still won't text, this is what we have available. Maybe if I want to stress that something is available to one, maybe we want to move carrots this week. Maybe I'll say, hey, didn't get an order from you via text, and we can do the usual, plus we have lots of carrots if you want any of that, something like that. But trying to make sure that we kind of keep them accountable and us accountable. It's a balance.
Well, thank you guys for sharing kind of how you work in creating a farming system that's sustainable for you guys. It's greatly appreciated. If people want to learn more about your farm and follow along, how should they do that?
We have a website, www.footprintfarmvt.com, and we're also on Instagram at Footprint Farm.
Sounds good. Thank you. I will provide a couple of links in the show notes for this podcast page talking about the Airtable and Harvey that was mentioned for CSA management. So go ahead and check out our website, agengpodcast.com, to find out links to the couple of things we chatted about today. So anyways, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you go ahead and subscribe, share this with a friend, or leave us a comment. And if you want more information, check out the show notes on our website at agengpodcast.com. That's agengpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day.
The proceeding has been a production of University of Vermont Extension. For more information on Extension, log on to www.uvm.edu/extension.